What's up, guys? I had to step away from YouTube for about 2 months. Something really, really bad happened, and Amazon finally got me. And they got me in a way that's actually probably not what you're thinking. It's actually a lot worse. So let me tell the story. So when most people say Amazon got them, that usually means Amazon shut their account down. That's actually not what happened. And what actually happened to me is a lot worse because it affects a lot more people far beyond myself. And just to cut to the punchline here, my repricing tool, NeuroPrice, that launched 2 years ago, is done, or at least it's done in its current form. Now, this is not just a story. The story I'm going to tell you is not just about NeuroPrice. It's actually something that affects all of us because what I've seen in the last 2 months since this happened is a deep behind the scenes look and how Amazon is trying to tank prices for all of us in ways that are probably not even visible to most of you. And so I kind of seen what they're doing and it's dark. It's not good. So I'm going to share with you what I've learned. I'm going to share with you what happened to NeuroPrice. I'm going to share with you what the future might look like, but it's not going to be the same. And I'm going to share with you honestly how disillusioned I am with the Amazon selling community. And I'll try to keep it positive, but it might not be. So we'll get into all that. All right, so first of all, what actually happened? Well, this was 90 days ago, early July. I woke up to over 100 emails in the NeuroPrice inbox. Everybody said the same thing. NeuroPrice isn't working. Now, repricing is obviously a very sensitive thing, so it's not something you can just sort of go, okay, we're working on it. Like people are panicking, right? Go to my developer. I said, what's going on? He says, hey, this is not good. Amazon is now sending a message when we try to collect our data that we use to reprice our users' inventory. They're sending us a message that is almost like a troll. And I don't remember the exact text of the message, but it was basically, hey, stop doing this and use our API. Now, if you follow me at all, you know what Amazon's API is how they share data with third-party tools, right? NeuroPrice was built to work without using Amazon's API, which is what allowed us to do what we do, which is different than what every other repricer can do. Basically, we could get tons of data other repricers can't get. NeuroPrice really represented the biggest advancement or the only significant advancement in the repricing world for years because we did things very, very differently. And that came at a huge cost, a huge technical burden that we had to tackle in order to make NeuroPrice work. And ultimately, it's what led to our undoing. So before I explain everything that actually happened, you have to understand the context here, which is that all repricers get their data through Amazon's API. NeuroPrice didn't. And the reason that Amazon's API is so bad is that they want to force all of our prices down. So they specifically obscure the data that would allow you to raise your prices. Like it's surgical. They looked at all the data, all the pricing data, competing data, and they said, okay, we're going to take the data that will actually allow Amazon sellers to raise their prices and hide it from them. NeuroPrice was built to solve that problem. So if you want to get into specifics, this would be things like being able to see the second and third lowest competing offer, the lowest FBA offer, which you can see most of the time with other repricing tools, but not all the time. If the FBA price, lowest FBA price is too high, not being able to reprice by sales rank category, all these things conspire together to keep prices down, which is what Amazon wants. So when I launched NeuroPrice, I knew we were not really in like an adversarial relationship with Amazon, but we knew we were doing things that Amazon would prefer that we didn't do. So you might think, well, that brings a lot of risk with it. Well, yes and no. The reason I felt pretty confident in the longevity of NeuroPrice is that the way we were collecting our data, we've been doing with another tool I was involved with years ago called Zen Arbitrage. We were doing the same thing with Zen Arbitrage. And no issues for years. This is literally like 8 years, 0 issues. So my thought was, okay, this seems what we're doing is pretty stable. And even though we knew Amazon would prefer that we weren't doing what we were doing, I think the idea was it was a mild preference and they didn't care that much. And not only did they not care that much, there really wasn't a lot they could do to stop what we were doing. Now, I want to be really clear. Before I launched NeuroPrice, we went back and went through all of Amazon's terms of service, right? We were like really meticulous about, okay, we need to make sure we're not actually overtly breaking any rules. And the reason is, obviously, if you are, Amazon will just put the hammer down and it'll be over. Like maybe my other tools like kind of fell under the radar a little bit, but if NeuroPrice gets too big, we want to like hit a reset, go back, review everything, make sure we're not breaking any rules. And what we came to is basically that this kind of falls between the cracks of some things. We were kind of in this gray area where like we knew Amazon preferred weren't doing what we were doing, but it wasn't anything that could really stop. So think of it kind of like this. There's a lot of examples of this like in society, like if you go to a movie, right? We've all done this. You get out of your movie, you look over, there's another movie you want to see in the next theater. You don't have a ticket, but you just kind of duck in and you maybe watch the second half of that movie, right? We've all done this. And movie theaters know this happened. Would they prefer that we didn't do it? Of course. is there much they can do to stop it? Well, they'd have to like redesign the entire theater architecture wise to prevent people going into one theater from being able to access a different theater, right? It would be too difficult for them to stop, and they don't care that much. So this basically had the relationship I think we had with Amazon, which is like they don't care that much, and if they wanted to stop it, it would be a huge undertaking. And so for that reason, I felt pretty comfortable that we could just kind of coast along, doing what we're doing forever. Obviously, that's not how it worked out. Bringing us back to early July, Amazon started sending us a message that said, "Hey, goofballs," this is not verbatim, but it's like, "Hey, goofballs, knock it off and start using our API." Now, were we specifically targeted? I actually don't think so. I've heard of a credible case of at least one other tool, not a repricer, that also got nuked in this 1 week period. So I don't think that we were specifically targeted. I don't think NeuroPrice was big enough for them to even really care about that much. And I do think this is more of just a broader initiative on their part to ensure that no Amazon seller has the data they need to raise their prices, which is the biggest message, the big message here in this video. And I'm going to tell you kind of where I think this is going and why we're kind of in the middle of some dark times here. So we spent a month. In a month, our developers were like bleeding out of their eyes working overnight to solve this problem. And we launched what we thought was a solution, and Amazon nuked it immediately, like literally within 12 hours. So that was it. I had to make a decision. Do I want to be going up against the Goliath here and continue to burn a lot of money? You guys, I lost a lot of money with NeuroPrice. We had a lot of subscribers. Like we had a very healthy number of subscribers for a tool that's only been around for 2 years. Like we obviously weren't like a Be Cool or something, but we definitely had like a really solid user base. But the technical burden was absolutely staggering. We were in development for 18 months. Most of the reprice tools, you could just like plug and play. I mean, you could just write some code and and they're just going to do the same thing every other repricer does. So there'd be no point in doing that, which is why I didn't want to build another repricer that did the same things every other repricer does, which is why I'm not actually going to relaunch NeuroPrice using the API. I'm just not going to do it because that would just simply mean we're just like every other tool out there. And why would you want to launch a tool like that? All repricers are the same. They work exactly the same. So it'd be pointless. I had to put the question to myself, like, do I really want to go back to to square one here and try to solve this problem again after we worked on it for 3.5 years? And the answer is I don't have an interest in that. NeuroPrice was built to solve a very urgent problem that affects 100% of Amazon sellers. And I set out, I felt like I was like setting out on this pirate ship mission, and I felt like it was noble and it needed to be done on behalf of myself, on behalf of every small seller that watches their prices get tanked by these repricing tools, or on behalf of every seller like me that would just sit there and manually reprice for hours and hours and hours a day. We deserve better, right? We work really hard for inventory. We deserve better. And so that was my mission with NeuroPrice. It was a noble mission. And I'm really sad to see it end the way that it has, although it's not quite the ending. And I'll get to that in a second. So what does this mean for you? What does this mean for the future of repricing? Well, it's not very good. Actually, the answer here, it's going to be some very dark times. Now, if you're a volume seller versus a margin seller, if you're a volume seller, nothing has changed. You just go, nothing, you didn't need NeuroPrice to begin with. All you care about, if you're a volume seller, you just care about turnover, right? So all you care about, you don't care if you make 10 cents per book or whatever. You just need to get the inventory out the door, right? Those are volume sellers. You have never had a problem because it's always been easy to do volume, which is very distinct from margins or profits. You've always been able to do volume with all the legacy repricing tools, okay? So nothing's changed for you. Now, on the subject of margin seller versus volume seller, I'm not going to go into this too deep because a lot of you have heard me talk about this already, but I want you to understand the difference. A volume seller is a seller that runs out of money before they run out of inventory sources. In other words, the bottleneck is money. If the bottleneck is money to invest in inventory, you are, by definition, a volume seller. You have to focus on turnover because you've got your money that you need access to, that you run out of, locked up in inventory, locked up in books or whatever it may be. You need to unlock the cash that's locked up in the inventory and get it back into more inventory to keep it working for you, okay? So all you care about is the circle of money just moving. That is a volume seller. A margin seller is a seller that runs out of inventory sources before they run out of money. That's going to be most smaller sellers. If you're not doing a bulk operation, you probably have more money to invest than you have inventory that you can find, right? So if that's you, you are a margin seller. You care about extracting the maximum amount of profit you can from every single item of inventory because you work really hard for the inventory, and because you run out of inventory sooner than you run out of money, you have to have inventory working for you in the optimal way possible. Okay, so that's the distinction. Most smaller sellers are going to be margin sellers, which means they are impacted most dramatically by the changes, this conspiracy to keep our prices low that Amazon has imposed on us. Okay, so I just want you to understand this. Let's move on. For margin sellers, those of us who are trying to extract more profit from our inventory on a per unit basis, we are in the middle of some very, very dark times because I have seen behind the curtain here, and now I know conclusively that Amazon is going to extraordinary measures to make sure that we do not have the data that we need to raise our prices. This ties into a broader conspiracy that one that is actually even more, Amazon is even more zealous about this than I realized. They've gone completely insane. Here's what I mean. I want you to think about all the different ways. I'm going to tie all this together here. How all the different ways that Amazon keeps us from raising our prices. Remember, Amazon's agenda is to be the low price leader on the internet. They want everyone to think, when they think we're going to get something the cheapest, to think Amazon. So anything that allows Amazon sellers to raise their prices in any way is a threat to Amazon's big mission, okay? Their core mission is threatened by us being able to get a fair market value for our inventory, okay? So let's look at the broader conspiracy here about how Amazon truly, literally conspires to keep us from being able to raise our prices and sell our inventory at a fair market value. Let's go back a number of years. The step one to this conspiracy, this will be back in about 2012-ish. When Amazon changed their API. You've heard me talk about this before. The API is how Amazon shares data with third-party tools, repricers, scanning apps, whatever. Amazon changed their API in about 2012. They removed the ability to conclusively see higher price competing offers, second and third lowest competing offer, fourth, fifth. You can't really see that with any degree of confidence with Amazon's API anymore. Again, what they did is surgically removed the exact data you would need that would allow you to raise your prices. This is not an accidental. It's not like a side effect. Amazon looked at all the data that an Amazon seller would want, and they would say anything that allows these sellers to raise their prices, can't have that, can't have that, can't have that. You can't have all FBA prices. They have to be in the bottom 20. A lot of you don't even know this is the thing. This is a real thing. And your pricing tool, by the way, does not tell you this. This is a real thing. The ability to see competing offers, as I said, being able to reprice by sales rank, reprice by product category, all the data that we need to price our inventory at a fair market value, Amazon surgically removes. Can't have that, can't have that. So that was step one back in 2012. And that went a long way in prices tanking, specifically for FBA sellers, but really for everybody. Next step of this was the high pricing errors. A lot of people don't know. This is a relatively recent thing. It's 6-7 years ago, Amazon first started to do this. And this is where you price something at a price you think is a fair market value for an item, and Amazon deactivates it and said, actually, you have to lower your price, right? We all deal with this. And they've only gotten worse over the years. They've gotten worse and worse and worse and worse, okay? So that is high price errors. That was another step in the conspiracy to keep our prices low. And it was effective, unfortunately, because until we all get lawyers and sue them for price fixing, this is what we have to deal with. So what was the next step of this conspiracy? Well, I don't know if it's the very next step, but a step in this was what happened 90 days ago when Amazon nuked Neuroprice. And it really wasn't about Neuroprice. Again, I don't think we were targeted specifically. But what they did is they said, okay, we need to plug up the smallest holes and prevent the smallest Amazon sellers, even the smallest sellers, from being able to access data that will allow them to raise their prices. Like Neuroprice was a speck of dust on the Amazon ecosystem. And they had developers presumably like burning the midnight oil to figure out how to stop 1/1000th of 1% of Amazon sellers from being able to raise their prices. This is insane. This is how far they're willing to go. And then I told you, like, we would go to get the data and they would just say, hey, stop it. It was like they knew what they were doing. It was specifically about forcing sellers to keep their prices down. And what was the next step of this? Well, what we saw, I gotta be honest, you guys, I've been in a cave for the last 30 days, like have not come up for air, trying to like solve this problem I'm here to talk to you about. And so there's a lot I don't know from the last 30 days, but as of 30 days ago, Amazon was giving the buy box to Merchant Fulfilled sellers. And that appears to have not gone away as far as I know. Again, if it's happened in the last 3 weeks, it might have actually gone away. I've emerged from my cave of despair only in the last 24 hours. I was in it for about 3 weeks. So assuming that's still a thing, what does this do? This forces FBA sellers and everybody to basically, the buy box is now basically going to the lowest priced offer. That's it. So now you don't even have the advantage of being an FBA seller anymore. It's crazy. And that forces FBA sellers to compete with Merchant Fulfilled. Insane. Actually, like very directly forces prices down. This is exactly what Amazon wants. Do you see? This is not all accidental. This is a pattern. It is an actual conspiracy. It's actually all geared towards prices coming down. Amazon wants to force all of our prices down. Okay, this is not like an accidental side effect. This is deliberate, controlled demolition. Okay, I need to understand this. So this is what we are dealing with, and this is why I say we are in dark times. If you are a margin seller, Amazon Neuroprice represented the only beacon of hope. And again, I'm not here to sell you anything because Neuroprice. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's not going away. But it's not going to really in any way resemble what it used to be. So. With that said, I'm not here trying to sell you anything. I'm just telling you, Neuroprice was the only option. There's other repricers that claim they have no blind spots. They're totally lying. You can sign up and confirm that in like 2 seconds. But point being, Neuroprice was the only option that allowed you to actually raise your prices and in any meaningful way. And now that that's gone, it is truly like some dark times. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with manually repricing, which is grueling, but it does the job. Or if you're a margin seller, you have to go over to an automated repricing tool and just suffer the consequences. Unfortunately, that's it. Which consequences being like your average selling price is going to go down like dramatically. And so here's some big. So I'm going to tell you. I'm going to kind of give you behind the curtain here in some conversations I've been having. So I've had some Amazon sellers come to me and they said, "Hey, Peter Valley, we understand that you are not going to pursue Neuroprice anymore, at least in the same form that it has been, but we want to try to solve this problem because these are Amazon sellers that knew that Neuroprice solved a very real, urgently needed problem, and they said we want to pick this up." And I'm going to tell you what I told them, and this is not positive. Now, again, I have no like financial incentive here because I just want this problem solved, right? So like I'm not going to. Neuroprice is on extended hiatus, and so I want this problem solved. So I'm happy to help people, and that would include I would extend that to all of you watching this right now. But what I told these people that came to me is I said this. They said we want to pick up this project and try to solve it, and I said, listen, there is not what I've learned the last 2 years. There is not a market for a tool that does what Neuroprice did. Now that might sound crazy because we actually had a lot of subscribers. We had what was I considered to be above what I would consider the most optimistic scenario for the number of subscribers that I expected for a tool that's launched only 2 years ago. We weren't a B cool or anything, but we had a very I'm not going to give away numbers because it just feels weird, but like we had a very healthy number of subscribers. We attracted a lot of Amazon sellers to Neuroprice. With that said, I got very, very discouraged over those 2 years. And what I said to these people that want to pick up where I left off is I said, listen, you grossly, even though you get it, you understand the value that Neuroprice was offering, you grossly overestimate how sophisticated Amazon sellers are. You are not prepared when you actually get out into that world that I lived in for 2 years. You are not prepared for how unsophisticated the average Amazon seller is. And this is not a diss, this is just reality. This is what I've learned. The average Amazon seller is extremely unsophisticated and is simply unable or unwilling to understand the problem that a tool like Neuroprice existed to solve. It doesn't matter how much education that you offer the average Amazon seller. The average Amazon seller has monkey caveman brain. And all they see is the number on the screen that represents their sales. All they see is the page in Amazon Seller Central that shows the sales they got that day. That's all they care about. It's very caveman brain. It's like, me see sales. Sales good. Me like sales. That is the 99% of Amazon sellers. That's all. They don't know anything different. They don't know their average selling price. They don't know their margins. All they care about is sales. And if all you want is sales, you just go to a B Cool. Let them run your prices down and you will get sales, right? This is what I keep saying. So I spent an insane amount of time trying to educate the Amazon selling community about what these repricers were keeping from you, the data they did not admit that they did not have access to, and specifically how it converted into lower selling prices for your inventory and pricing getting forced downwards. Across dozens of videos and articles, I went deep into this subject. And here's my thought with Neuroprice. My very optimistic, naive theory going into Neuroprice was all I have to do is go to the Amazon selling community and give them proof of this is what your repricer is hiding from you. They can't see the lowest FBA offer a lot of the time. They're not showing you the second and third, fourth, fifth lowest competing offer. You can't reprice by sales rank. You can't reprice by most of the time. You can't reprice by product category. You can't do all these things. There's all these blind spots, and together they result in your prices being tanked. I thought all I had to do was just show like proof. Like here's a documentation for Amazon. Here's this. Screenshots. Proof, right? And then everyone would go, "Oh my god, I had no idea how much money I've been leaving on the table." And then they would sign up for NeuroPrice. I thought, and then I would be this the clouds parting to reveal the sun. NeuroPrice has arrived, right? And that kind of is what happened to a very large degree. Like again, we had a ton of subscribers. But with that said, I was not prepared for how many Amazon sellers you could literally give proof to and show exactly how much money they're leaving on the table, and for them to just go, okay, whatever, moving on, back to be cool, back to price tanking. Like that's how it was. It was crazy. And the average Amazon seller is just caveman brain. Sales good, me like sales. That's actually how 99.9% of Amazon sellers think. Now, you might be thinking, well, how is this possible? You're contradicting yourself, Peter Valley, because you're saying most Amazon sellers don't care about what NeuroPrice is offering, but you're also saying NeuroPrice had a ton of subscribers. Here's what I learned. This is the real discouraging part. I'm going to give you a vague read here, and this is not hard statistics, but my vague sense after spending 2 years in the inbox, like really interacting with NeuroPrice members full time for 2 years, is the not the vast majority, I would say about 50%, rough estimate here, 50% of NeuroPrice subscribers didn't even know or understand why NeuroPrice was better. They only signed up because it was the repricer that was in front of them on the day they decided to sign up for a repricer. So in other words, we didn't do a lot of flashy promotion. Like you notice, we were gearing up to it, but like you notice, like every YouTuber on earth has a Be Cool video, right? They're getting paid for that. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. If you believe in what you're saying. But like we were going to go that route, but like we didn't. And we were like kind of in stealth mode for a couple of years. But still, we still reached a lot of people. And it turns out probably about half the people that signed up for NeuroPrice didn't even understand how we were better than other repricers, which is crazy because I spent all day, every single day, weekends, immersed in this stuff. If I wasn't writing articles, I was making videos. If I wasn't making videos, I was talking to developers. If I wasn't talking to developers, I was researching how to solve certain technical problems that we were encountering. All I did was like heads down, trying to solve this very important problem for Amazon sellers, only to realize most Amazon sellers don't even care about the problem I was solving. And even if I showed them the problem, hey, your house is on fire. You might be in the living room, you don't know, but like the bedroom upstairs is on fire. You point out the fire, and they're like, you're interrupting me. I'm watching Netflix. Can you go away, please? Like that was kind of the attitude of like, yeah, don't bother me with the facts. Don't bother me with this thing that's costing me money. So that's what I dealt with. And so we got 50% of people that didn't even really know. And then here's a really discouraging thing. You got another discouraging thing. So this is true of not just of NeuroPrice. Any subscription-based tool, whether it's like, I don't know, like some membership platform or like a course maybe, or like different things, anything you have to sign in to access, most people sign up and they don't access it at all. And this is not a NeuroPrice issue. In fact, we were actually much better at this than other. Like I had another tool years ago that I was involved with, some of you might remember, called Zen Arbitrage. And the number of people that back then that didn't sign up in the last 30 days, that was like a metric I looked at. To you guys, it was in a range of 50%. That's great. You might be thinking, well, that must be a terrible tool if nobody. Actually, no, that's pretty normal. That's really just normal for all subscription-based tools. So with NeuroPrice, it was about 30%. It was much better than average. But still, that was discouraging. So I'm like, why am I like actually giving up 2 years, like years of my life? Like literally just giving up years of my life for 50% of people who don't care, 30% who don't even log in, and now we're down to like whatever, I don't even know the numbers of people that actually are there, really, really value what we're offering and really understand we're solving a real problem. Now, again, I don't want to give away NeuroPrice subscription numbers, even though it's, I don't know why, but I just feel weird about it. But so that brings us down to like the low hundreds number of people that actually valued all the work that I was putting in. And I'm not saying I'm like some hero, but like I really did. And I'm just like, why do I care more? I'm saying this to a lot of you right now, like a lot of Amazon sellers, like, why do I care more about your inventory than you do? Why do I care more about preventing prices from tanking than you do? You should care. And I couldn't get people to care. Not as many people as I thought. So That was really discouraging. So going back to the people that approached me like, hey, we want to solve this problem, pick it up where you left off. I was just like, you guys overestimate the demand for this. Everyone thinks, oh, if I could just wave a wand, yes, I would, I would want like the most amount of money I can get from my inventory. But are they willing to actually like educate themselves? Are they willing to like maybe use a repricer that works like 20% slower? No, absolutely not. They cannot be bothered. So that's it. Amazon sellers, unfortunately, the vast majority, I don't necessarily blame them because most Amazon sellers, it's just a side hustle for them. They don't have the time to like really like get scientific about this stuff. But most Amazon sellers, it's like if you got two repricers side by side, and one of them makes them more money, but the sales maybe aren't the same. They just go, no sales, bad, or like lower sales, bad. Higher sales, good. Me like sales. Caveman man like sales. And so they're just. I actually had a guy. You guys. Ugh, it really is discouraging. And so anyway, I'll kind of put a bow on that point I was making, which is, I went to these people and I was just like, look, I support you 100%. I'll be there to help you, but like, you think just like I did that you're gonna swoop in and be the savior here when people are not buying what you're selling. Or if they are buying it, they're not buying it for the reason you think you're buying it. And that's why these other repricers have been able to get away with what they get away with for so long is because the average Amazon seller does not care. And you're not going to be able to make people care because, man, did I try. And it's not like I have this like huge platform or anything, but you know, I screamed and yelled about this stuff for a long time, and to only get couple hundred people that like I can confirm really got it is hugely discouraging. And so what I told them is, you're going to spend an insane amount of money on the technical challenges. And anything could be solved. Any technological problem could be solved with enough money and enough time. But what I said to them is, you're going to spend a lot of money and a lot of time, and the demand is not going to be there. And the volume sellers, the one that actually people that actually can pay like $1,000 a month, or what it's going to take for you to pay developers to solve this problem, those are volume sellers. So they don't even care. They're just about turnover. So it's like, you're not solving a problem for the people that have the most amount of money. And so if you're solving a problem for largely smaller sellers, you have to sell at a price point that is realistic. And that means, definitely probably under $100 a month. And you're just not, it's not there. Like I've lived in that world. I know the lay of the land. It is not there. So you guys, there was one guy where like, I talked to him almost not daily, but probably like once a week for years. We'd email. He's read everything I've put out. He's watched all my videos. He knows this stuff. He knows the FBA. He knows about the replies blind spots. He knows everything. And after NeuroPrice got nuked, he went to, I forget, it was like one of the bigger repricers, and he came back and he's like, yeah, I was surprised my sales actually went up. And I'm like, dude, you know this stuff. Like, that just simply saying your sales went up does not tell the story. That's not enough information. That could be a good thing, or it could not be a good thing. But that is not the metric. The metric is, okay, sales, but it's also it's margins, and like you have to look at a few different metrics and how they all come together. It's not just sales. And the guy still, and that was a really big thing for me. I was like, oh wow, I know this guy knows, and he still doesn't get it. So now it's like, this education, the educational challenge is just impossible. It's like insurmountable. Like the average Amazon seller just is willfully ignorant. And again, I'm kind of like it's not really an insult. It sounds like it, but it's really not, because you kind of care about what you have to care about. And if you're a smaller seller and it's your side hustle, and like I said, you don't have time to get scientific about it, so you just kind of like, hey, it sells, and I made a little bit of money, and that's that. I don't have, yeah, you don't have, they don't have enough mental bandwidth to care about much more than that. So what's the takeaway, you guys? Where does this leave us? Okay, if you're a volume seller, your inventory is the many tens of thousands of units of SKUs for live at any given time. All you care about is turnover. Okay, cool. You've always been fine. Nothing's changed, right? For the rest of us, we are in some dark times, because you are forced now to either, again, switch to a repricing tool. It's going to tank your prices. You are going to manually reprice, which can be very, very time consuming. I am going to offer a solution that's, again, I'm not going to say this is going to have mass appeal. It's going to be a solution that a small number of people that really are smaller sellers that really need to get the most amount of profit they can for every single item. I have a solution for you. I'm not going to talk about it now. Maybe in the next video, maybe the one after that. Definitely on my email list. So go over to fbamaster.com, link below. Get on the email list. Just anywhere you see an email field, just put your email in. I'll make sure you get notification of this. But I'm not going to be really noisy about it because, again, I've tried to be noisy and the average Amazon seller doesn't care. So if you care about stuff I've talked about here, then get on my email list and I'll make sure you get notification of this thing that will solve the problem for you. But it's not going to be something that I'm going to ever think will have mass appeal. So basically, I'm going to make you I'm not going to make you work to find out about it, but I'm not going to shove it in your face either. So if you care, go get on my email list. I'll make sure you get notification about it. And Amazon, and this is what it comes to. Amazon is taking extraordinary measures now, you guys, to make sure that we do not get any data that we can use to raise our prices, and that is a really dark time. So it means we have to take matter into our own hands, and you cannot trust what's in your repricing tool. You can't trust what's in any third party app. If you compare it to what's on the Amazon page, there's always discrepancies. So that means that leaves manual repricing as being the only option, again, if you truly care about getting the most you can out of every single unit, which is, I realize, not a good solution, but that's what we're left with. So I hope to have more news for you in the future about a better solution, but that's where we're at right now. So thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry for being gone for so long. I hope you understand what I've been dealing with, and I hope you got some value out of this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.